13 ABC, this is a breaking news special report.
Well, Alexis Means there, getting some pretty pointed questions to Lieutenant Mark King, who gave some pretty pointed answers that should put some people's fears at rest. He said this student is isolated. He has a handgun, but he's been isolated in a hallway, that adjacent classrooms to this site have been evacuated. The kids are now in other classrooms. But the most important thing he said was, children are fine. Everything is fine. They are not going to be injured. That should allay a lot of fears for people who are watching us this hour.
And the gunmen,
back to you guys in the studio.
Obviously, Christine Long reporting live. Christine, thank you. Lieutenant Mark King's very short press conference there established two priorities. One, inform the public about the situation, but two, to comfort parents. Obviously, the grandparent that Christine just talked to, comforted by his words that children are fine, everything is fine, nobody's going to be injured.
And we continue our breaking news coverage with Thursday. Thank goodness they had that training in place, which they did like three months ago.
And Lieutenant Mark King was making the point that they knew what to do and they acted upon it. Probably saved a lot of kids from worry just to be separated from the situation. But now TPD is tweeting that the 14-year-old who was involved in this gun incident has now been taken into custody. This situation took place around 9:30 this morning when we started getting word, but it appears to be over and no injuries as a result. So parents, please be pleased with that.
Absolutely. And of course, we'll continue to follow the story as they're relieved. And they said they're going to stay on scene until they see their loved ones. Can't even blame them. I'm sure they're just going to wrap their arms around them. And
Christian, the big question though is, how did a gun get in the school?
Absolutely.
What's a 14-year-old doing with a gun? Those are questions that are going to be answered throughout the next days.
And that's going to be the next step. Now, I do know that Toledo Public Schools, they do random weapon checks. They'll never really tell you the rhyme and reason when they do them, but that's going to be the next question. What are they going to do to make sure that this doesn't happen again? Well, fortunately, it's not more serious than it was today. This is another live look outside the school. Again, the 14-year-old alleged gunman, we'll have to say right now, in police custody after about an hour and a half speaking with police negotiators. Probably a little less than that. They arrived on the scene maybe 45 minutes ago, but it says ended peacefully. The students are safe. The ones that were closest to the situation were immediately removed. They are safe this morning.
Our third question comes from Bill Hormann, and it goes to D. Michael Collins.
Mr. Collins, you pledged to cut $15 million from the city's budget if you're elected mayor, but I want to focus your attention on the issue of privatization. One way to save taxpayer dollars, it could be argued, is to privatize some city services. The Bell administration has partially privatized trash pickup. One, what do you think of the system as it's working today? And two, are there other city services that could be privatized to save taxpayer dollars?
Well, in the first place, the Bell administration.
All right, our next question comes from Bill Hormann, and it goes to Mr. Bell.
Mr. Mayor, the state has balanced its budget in part on reducing the amount of money it sends back to cities. The city of Toledo has lost $34 million over the last 4 years. $34 million. What should Toledo do to convince Columbus to give us that money back? But more importantly, would getting that money back simply encourage Toledo to keep spending itself into higher deficits?
Well, being the
All right, and now we go for our final round of panel questions, and Bill Hormann asks Anita Lopez this question.
Ms. Lopez, I want to get to the labor issue in a different way. You have the endorsement of the big labor unions in town and their national affiliates and all the volunteers they bring and all of the money they can contribute. Mayor Bell had to make some tough choices with regard to contracts and the unions in order to save some taxpayer dollars. The unions, of course, oppose him for everything he did. How can you assure the taxpayers that your strong support from unions will not affect how you decide issues involving unions?
Well, I received.
And our last question from our panel member is from Bill Hormann, and it goes to Joe McNamara.
Mr. McNamara, you mentioned this a little bit earlier, the local hiring preference that you were instrumental in pushing through council. Essentially, it would award a contract to a Toledo business that bid a slight percentage higher than an outside business. Yet your campaign outsourced some printing costs to a company in Cleveland. How much did you spend with that company in Cleveland, and shouldn't you practice what you preach?
Bill, I absolutely practice what I preach.
In today's Blade briefing, what could be the first of several public forums discussing race in Toledo. The Toledo Blade and the Toledo Community Coalition sponsoring an event tonight at Woodward High School. And the Blade's executive editor, Kurt Frank, joins us to talk about this forum. Hi, Kurt. Race is...
Hi, Bill. How are you now?
I'm well, thanks. Talk about this event tonight. Race is one of those constant issues in our country. Why did the Blade feel that now is the time to talk about this?
Weiss, who will bring up this subject and try to find some solutions.
In your opinion, Kurt, how important is it to have an open discussion like this? You know, a lot of people would really rather not talk about race.
And come up with some solutions by talking together about it.
You mentioned that provocative series of reports about the gang issues in Toledo. Didn't sit well with Mayor Mike Bell. Did you hear from the community about that series, though?
Like that. Plus, tonight we'll have some panelist discussion after the keynote speaker, and I think it will be a successful forum.
What exactly do you think will be the result of all this, Kurt?
I think our panel discussion will help that, as well as Mr. Wise.
Well, this is all sparked by the efforts of the Toledo Blade. Thank you, Kurt Frank, executive editor of the Blade. Tonight's forum on race begins at 7 o'clock. It's at Woodward High School. The public invited to hear the panel discussion and, of course, the guest speaker. The Blade is planning more forums just like this one in the future. Kurt, thanks a lot. And then there's this. A Defiance man is behind bars because police say they caught him trying to steal gasoline. A Williams County Sheriff deputy spotted a vehicle at the side of State Route 34. The driver was gone, but the deputy says he found 29-year-old Michael Rochester stealing gas from somebody's garage nearby. Rochester now facing several charges.
New at 5 tonight, attracted students from 19 different states.
And all that extra traffic around campus is pretty good for the local economy. Businesses near BGSU cashing in on today's open house. Managers say sales were up all weekend long.
We try to do it and try to get people in here.
The businesses say they're also very busy when the students move in and when they move out.
And a reminder.
Monday forecast. Stick around.
All right, thanks, Jay. Well, Ohio Governor John Kasich delivers his State of the State speech tomorrow night. He'll speak in Lima at the Veterans Memorial Civic Center, and he's going to use the speech to sell his ideas on tax reform and his school funding proposals. Now, one of the governor's proposals is a cut in the state's sales tax. But you would pay that lower tax on more items and services. That would include paying tax on concert tickets, football tickets, and at amusement parks. Also, admission to fairs and museums and theme parks would be taxed at a lower 5% rate.
Ohio's casinos are 4369.
The city of Adrian is going to have to consider some big cuts in order to balance its budget. City commissioners are meeting today to talk about ways of balancing what could be a $370,000 deficit. One proposal on the table will eliminate more than 100 seasonal jobs, close the city pool, and cancel a number of recreational programs. And Adrian leaders will also talk about a new oil processing plant. Town held an open forum last week, but the issue comes up at tonight's meeting, which starts at 7 o'clock in the city chambers. In your health tonight, if you're looking for a way to make your preschooler behave, try changing the channel on your television set. A study out today says switching the TV channel from violent shows to more educational programs can actually improve a preschooler's behavior. Authors say what children watch is just as important as how much they watch.
Toledo Mayor Mike Bell is in Hanover, Germany at a trade show trying to bring more jobs to the Glass City. Today is the final day of that show, and 13 ABC's Bill Hormann is the only television reporter with our delegation in Germany. He is inside one of the biggest economic trade shows in the world.
It's the final day of this huge trade show. We've now learned there's 6,500 exhibitors at this trade show in Hanover, Germany. Mayor Mike Bell's not obviously talking to every one of them, nor is the RGP, but they're talking to about 20 exhibitors who may want to move to the United States, may want to set up manufacturing, may consider Toledo, Ohio as one of those places where they'd like to do business. But here's what's on the mayor's schedule for today. An exhibit called Metropolitan Solutions. It talks about trends in creating an urban living environment for the next 100 years. It's part of the Sustainable Cities program that the mayor is trying to create. So he's going to tour that facility and we'll be with him. Also, Toledo is not the only Ohio city that's here in Hanover right now. There are other cities competing with Toledo to get the investment dollars that we desperately seek. We'll talk to some of those other cities, see how it's going for them, see if they see Toledo as a major competitor when we see you later on this afternoon and evening. In Hanover, Germany, Bill Hormann, 13 ABC, Action News.
Toledo Mayor. We have reporters with both campaigns tonight. 13 ABC's Bill Hormann is with Mayor Mike Bell. He joins us live from Table 44 on Monroe Street, downtown.
Lee, thanks. Mayor, what are you seeing with these numbers? Is it time for you to say thank you, Toledo?
I think it's just about there.
They're still here. They're hopeful. It's 14 points, but they're hopeful.
But what I'm always going to be is respectful of whatever the decisions of our citizens are, and we'll go from there. We'll give it a little bit more time, and then we'll make a decision and go from there.
So you haven't conceded yet, but you see the writing, you hear the taps being played in the background?
I think so. I think so, but we'll wait and see and go from there, and maybe in about 15, 20 minutes you'll have a response to that.
You seem comfortable with it, though, Mr. Mayor. I mean, this is a crushing defeat. It has to be a blow to your ego.
No, not at all. I did exactly what I said I was going to do here when I took over the office of mayor. I said that to fix this place, you're going to make some people mad. And it made people mad, but it's fixed. And so, you know, if this is it, then I'm leaving it better than when I came in. And I'm good. That's what I do. I fix things.
Some of the people you made mad, the labor unions, I understand they spent $250,000 to defeat you. Looks like they're probably successful. Did you make a mistake with Senate Bill 5 and Issue 2?
Absolutely not. If I had it to do again, I'd do it exactly the same way, because we wouldn't have a balanced budget right now. We wouldn't have a rainy day fund. We wouldn't have been able to hire the people we've hired, you know. And so, no, I have no issues with that.
And finally, the transition now comes. How are you going to handle this transition?
It's an easy transition for me, you know. It's not like I had to be working to start off with, so it's not going to be that difficult. I feel a little concerned about the people who have done an excellent job for your term, and you know, that is my concern, because they have moved the ball way down the field. But once again, we have to be respectful of the citizens and where they're at, and I'm okay with that.
Mr. Mayor, thank you so much for your grace this evening. I really appreciate your time. Mayor Mike Bell, a tough evening tonight. He's been down double digits throughout the evening. Doesn't look like he's going to pull this one out. He thinks maybe in the next 15 minutes he'll officially concede. Back to you in the studio.